not word one, you know, it says 100%, well, 100% of one, 100% to who? I mean, that could be a lot of different things. What's the administrative costs? When's it going to start? When's it going to end? You know, just literally nothing.
They knew what they were doing, and they thought they...
Tiffany Henyard, self-declared super mayor of Dutton, Illinois, is taking local politics to a whole new level of chaos. Despite the village being deep in debt, Henyard has proposed giving out employee bonuses and offering complete tax refunds. It's as if she believes money magically appears, ignoring the town's financial instability. The move has sparked outrage, as taxpayers are left wondering how she plans to cover the cost. In this wild political ride, it wouldn't be surprising if her next bold move involves handing out designer handbags at the next board meeting. Because at this point, anything seems possible. Henyard's actions have left many questioning whether she's fit for office or simply playing a dangerous game with the village's future.
That's what the trustees I talked to are calling this. They say the news took them by surprise, and now they're talking to legal counsel to figure out their...
Tiffany Henyard's proposal to issue tax refunds in Dalton, Illinois, has raised eyebrows and sparked outrage, as it seems completely out of touch with the village's financial reality. With the town deep in debt, vendors waiting for payments for months, and essential services suffering from overdue bills, the idea of returning taxes to residents is almost laughable. Henyard's suggestion has left many wondering whether she's intentionally destabilizing the village, or if she genuinely believes such a proposal is viable. After all, Henyard has already racked up a significant deficit with unchecked spending, and Dalton's finances are stretched thin. Public services are already feeling the strain, with unpaid contractors and frustrated vendors pulling back, leaving critical repairs and infrastructure projects unfinished. Yet Henyard's response to this growing crisis is to propose handing out funds that are desperately needed to keep the village afloat. Some speculate she may have an undisclosed financial reserve tucked away, ready to fund her whimsical plans. Others joke that perhaps she plans to auction off the village's office furniture or other assets to cover the cost. In any case, the suggestion only adds to a troubling pattern of questionable financial decisions, raising serious concerns about Henyard's priorities and ability to manage the village's affairs. For many Dalton residents, it's becoming harder to ignore the widening gap between Henyard's plans and the harsh financial realities they face.
Motion to terminate Chief.
Tiffany Henyard's leadership of Dalton, Illinois, has taken a bizarre and troubling turn, leaving many residents wondering whether she is woefully unprepared for the responsibilities of office, or if she is deliberately playing a dangerous game with the town's future. One of her most controversial actions has been the proposal to issue tax refunds, a suggestion that seems completely out of step with the village's dire financial situation. Dalton is deep in debt, struggling to pay vendors, and essential public services are suffering due to unpaid bills. Yet Henyard's response is to propose returning taxpayer money in the form of refunds. It's as if she's living in a fantasy world where the village's budget magically replenishes itself, ignoring the harsh financial reality on the ground. Residents are questioning whether Henyard genuinely believes this proposal is feasible or if she's simply setting up an unrealistic, irresponsible publicity stunt. After all, the village is already battling overdue bills and outstanding balances with critical service providers, some of whom are pulling back, refusing to complete essential repairs or infrastructure upgrades. With the village teetering on the brink of financial collapse, the idea of giving out tax refunds is viewed as absurd. The suggestion seems even more out of touch considering Henyard has already racked up a substantial deficit with unchecked spending. Adding fuel to the fire, Henyard has proposed issuing employee bonuses in a town that can barely cover its basic operating costs. How can she justify rewarding employees when the village can't even pay for necessities? It's like throwing a party on the deck of the Titanic while pretending everything is fine. What exactly are these bonuses for, anyway? From where most residents are standing, it appears that the only thing getting done is a lot of spending on things no one can explain. Given the financial turmoil, some are joking that the bonuses will come in the form of IOUs or perhaps even a single shoe for each employee, as that might be all Dalton can afford at this point. The situation is so baffling that it's hard not to wonder if Henyard is staging a publicity stunt. Is she trying to appear generous or caring by proposing these impractical plans? The reality is, her actions are doing the opposite. They're making her look completely unprepared for the role of mayor. She's the type of leader who promises grand things while showing no ability to deliver. When the backlash inevitably hits, it's likely she will turn around and blame the town trustees for not supporting her ridiculous ideas. This is the classic case of smoke and mirrors, and the residents of Dalton are left trying to see through the fog. In the midst of this political chaos, another explosive revelation has left Dalton residents in shock. Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who may have thought she was done with public office, has been brought in as a special investigator to look into the financial mess Henyard is allegedly creating. The findings from Lightfoot's investigation have stunned the community and raised serious concerns about the mayor's management of village funds. In a public meeting that can only be described as explosive, Lightfoot revealed the initial findings of her investigation into Dalton's finances. And the news was shocking. According to Lightfoot, the village's financial condition is far worse than anyone could have imagined. On April 2, 2024, Dalton's general fund balance was just $561. By May 2024, that balance had dropped to a mere $365,000. A staggering loss of nearly $9 million in just a few months. Where did all that money go? One of the most alarming findings was Henyard's spending patterns. The investigation revealed that purchases made at major retailers like Amazon, Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair had been charged to the village's credit cards. While no one objects to reasonable purchases for the town, the scale of Henyard's spending is another matter. On January 5, 2023, for example, the village credit card was used for 3 separate Amazon purchases totaling $43,000 in a single day. An amount that far exceeds what most people spend in a year, let alone in a few hours. The individual purchases were $33,000, $4,700, and $5,699. This type of reckless spending is deeply troubling for a town struggling to pay its bills, and it raises serious questions about Henyard's financial judgment. Trustee Tana Belcher, one of Henyard's most outspoken critics, called the $43,000 Amazon shopping spree a slap in the face to the people of Dalton, and it's hard to argue with her. Many residents are living paycheck to paycheck, while their mayor is allegedly spending tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars on online shopping sprees. The investigation led by Lightfoot also uncovered other disturbing financial irregularities, including 2 police officers receiving overtime pay that far exceeded their base salaries. One officer, whose annual salary was around $87,315, managed to earn an additional $114,800 in overtime, nearly doubling his pay. Another officer with a base salary of about $73,515 received over $27,000 in overtime alone. These outsized payments are raising eyebrows and fueling suspicions that Henyard may be using taxpayer dollars to curry favor with certain members of the police force, further solidifying her support among allies within the department. But perhaps the most shocking part of the investigation was Henyard's behavior in the wake of these revelations. She was conspicuously absent from the critical council meetings where the findings were presented. Her failure to attend sent a clear message to residents who are hoping for some accountability or answers from their mayor. Instead, Henyard has reportedly been more focused on securing her position by changing the locks at Village Hall and surrounding herself with high-profile criminal defense attorneys, moves that only deepen the sense that she's bracing for legal trouble. By avoiding these meetings, she's left a void where accountability should be, and her reliance on expensive lawyers only adds to the growing concerns about her leadership. The absence of Henyard at key moments of accountability speaks volumes about her priorities. It suggests that she is more concerned with protecting herself than addressing the needs of the community. With mounting evidence of financial mismanagement, residents are left wondering just how much worse things will get before they hit rock bottom. Henyard's actions are leading many to question not only her ability to govern but her integrity as well. As the investigation continues, it's clear that Dalton's financial crisis is far from over, and its residents are left to wonder if their mayor will ever be held accountable for the damage she's done.
That you are up here at this special meeting and not downstairs where we have big.
In a recent and heated public meeting, Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard's response to mounting criticism left many residents both shocked and perplexed. Faced with growing concerns over her management of the village's finances, Henyard lashed out, attempting to turn the tables on her critics. Rather than addressing questions about her spending or Dalton's ongoing fiscal struggles, Henyard accused the trustees of targeting her not for her handling of public funds, but because of her identity as a Black woman in power. In a sharp and defensive retort aimed directly at the trustees, Henyard stated, "You all forget I'm the leader. They want to hear from the mayor," before adding, "You all should be ashamed of yourselves because you all are Black, and you all sit up here beating and attacking a Black woman that's in power." While there is no question that Henyard is indeed a Black woman holding a position of authority, her critics argue that the issue at hand has little to do with her race or gender and everything to do with her leadership and the state of Dalton's finances. Critics contend that under Henyard's administration, the village's financial health has deteriorated, with alleged questionable spending and mismanagement leading to growing taxpayer burdens. They point to frequent travel expenses and luxury expenditures charged to village funds, as well as reports of substantial sums allegedly spent on personal purchases. For many, these financial decisions have raised serious questions about her priorities, with many residents feeling that Henyard has failed to account for where taxpayer money is going. While Henyard's defenders may view her as a trailblazer for women and people of color in politics, her invocation of racial dynamics in response to financial scrutiny has not sat well with many of her former allies. These critics argue that using her race and gender as a shield against legitimate criticism is not only disingenuous, but it also undermines the need for accountability in governance. By reframing valid concerns about financial mismanagement as a racial issue, Henyard appears to be diverting attention away from the real problems facing Dalton, specifically the village's spiraling finances and the misuse of public funds. This move has struck a nerve within the community, with some constituents accusing Henyard of downplaying the village's financial struggles in favor of a personal narrative. Those who once supported Henyard, or saw potential in her leadership, are now expressing disillusionment. They argue that her focus has shifted from serving the public to defending her personal image. For many, true accountability should transcend personal identity, and Henyard's refusal to engage with questions about her financial decisions only deepens their frustration. The controversy over Henyard's response is compounded by the troubling revelations of her spending habits, which have raised eyebrows in Dalton. Reports show that Henyard and her team have spent over $67,000 on travel to various cities, including Portland, Austin, Atlanta, and New York City. These were not exactly budget trips. In Atlanta, Henyard stayed at the Four Seasons with a bill of over $9,000, while in New York, the mayor's team booked a stay at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, incurring a total of $13,000. First-class flights were also included in these expensive excursions. These lavish trips, funded by taxpayer money, have left many residents wondering how these expenditures benefit the community. The issue of extravagant spending has fueled growing resentment, especially when many in Dalton are struggling to make ends meet. Henyard's alleged use of public funds for expensive dinners at five-star hotels only adds to the perception that she is misusing taxpayer dollars. According to reports, these dinners were more like social gatherings than discussions of the village's pressing financial issues. Henyard's critics argue that such expenditures not only reflect poor fiscal management but also indicate a lack of focus on the actual needs of the community. One of Henyard's most vocal former supporters, Nikita Cloud, who served as her chief of staff, has publicly criticized the mayor for her extravagant spending. Cloud, who worked closely with Henyard, described the mayor's behavior as a clear departure from responsible leadership. "I don't think she's fit to be mayor. I think she wants to be a reality TV star," Cloud said, describing how Henyard frequently invited her aides and supporters to dine at expensive restaurants using taxpayer money. According to Cloud, these dinners were not used to discuss the serious issues facing the village, but rather were little more than social occasions for Henyard to bolster her image. Cloud's comments are part of a broader narrative that has emerged among Henyard's critics, one that paints her as more interested in personal gain and attention than in effectively governing Dalton. This perception has left many in the community disillusioned, especially as the village grapples with overdue bills, strained public services, and the threat of further financial instability. The broader issue at play is not just Henyard's spending, but the apparent disconnect between her actions and the reality that residents face on a daily basis. While Henyard's defenders may argue that she is being unfairly targeted because of her race or gender, for many in Dalton, the primary concern remains the village's financial health. Henyard's insistence on framing the issue in terms of identity rather than her record as a leader is seen by many as an attempt to deflect from the legitimate concerns of the people she was elected to serve. In the end, Henyard's recent comments and defense strategy have only served to deepen the divide in Dalton. Some residents still view her as a victim of unfair treatment, while others see her as a mayor who is more focused on defending herself than addressing the critical issues facing the village. This tension highlights a broader problem of governance in Dalton, where leadership appears to be mired in personal narratives rather than solutions to the pressing financial and administrative challenges at hand. The ultimate question remains, can Henyard shift her focus from defending her personal image to addressing the fiscal crisis that threatens Dalton's future?
The way that the government always does it is to go and investigate people around her, and that's what they're doing.
Tiffany Henyard's focus on her public image has become impossible to ignore, with billboards featuring her name and face prominently displayed throughout Dalton, proclaiming her as the super mayor who keeps her promises. However, many residents view these billboards as a sign of Henyard's ego rather than genuine leadership. One local even compared her to a dictator, questioning the need for such self-promotion when the village is facing serious financial issues. In addition to the ongoing investigation into her spending, Henyard is now facing an increasing number of lawsuits. Village trustees have accused her of forging checks and withholding financial records, deepening suspicions of mismanagement and corruption. As if that weren't enough, Henyard and her boyfriend are also facing eviction from their Dalton home. The landlord claims they have not made rent payments for several months and owe thousands of dollars in unpaid rent. After knowing Henyard for over 2 decades, the landlord expressed concerns that her ongoing financial troubles may force her to give up the house, further complicating her already precarious situation. These legal and financial challenges continue to pile up, leaving many residents wondering if Henyard can weather the storm she's created.
Unfortunately, we knew it was going to be a little messy, but it's just something we felt important that had to be done, that should be done. So, but like I said, you have to.
Mayor Tiffany Henyard's path to re-election has become a full-blown battlefield, as allegations of financial mismanagement, corruption, and self-serving policies continue to cloud her time in office. Despite these controversies, Henyard has made it abundantly clear that she's not backing down. In fact, she's gearing up for another run at the mayor's office. Yes, even with the mounting accusations, a disgruntled community, and increasing scrutiny over her actions, Henyard has thrown her hat back in the ring, signaling to both her supporters and critics that she still believes she has the backing to retain her position. Her confidence, however, comes at a time when many in the community are growing increasingly disillusioned. Her re-election bid may be her most audacious move yet, considering her tenure has been marked by one controversy after another. Many Dalton residents now view her administration as a liability to the village. To some, Henyard's unshakable resilience signals a profound disconnect between her and the very people she's supposed to represent. They see a leader willing to overlook the anger, frustration, and very real concerns of her constituents in favor of holding on to power at any cost. Henyard's self-assuredness in the face of mounting criticism has only fueled further resistance from her opponents. As the re-election campaign approaches, they see an opportunity to challenge her every move, highlighting the numerous complaints and questionable decisions that have tainted her time in office. From allegations of financial misuse to reports of questionable personal expenditures and the manipulation of police resources for her own benefit, her opponents are prepared to ensure these issues are front and center during the campaign. Already, community members are voicing their concerns over the prospect of more years under Henyard's leadership. They point to her track record, which is riddled with allegations of financial mismanagement and a lack of transparency. Reports of her extravagant spending, including luxury travel and lavish dinners, have led many to question her priorities. Critics argue that her leadership has been more focused on self-promotion and personal gain than on addressing the real needs of the community. Worse still, Henyard's decisions have sparked investigations, including a federal probe into her finances and actions as mayor, casting a dark shadow over her tenure. For many residents, Henyard's decision to seek re-election seems audacious, if not entirely detached from the sentiments of the very people she represents. Her critics argue that she is more concerned with holding on to power than with listening to the legitimate concerns of her constituents. It's clear that for Henyard, the accusations against her have had little bearing on her plans. She appears determined to frame the criticisms as mere distractions, a tactic by her political opponents to derail her vision for Dalton. This narrative, which positions Henyard as a victim of baseless attacks, is central to her campaign. However, it's hard to ignore the voices of those who believe the town has suffered under her governance. From the financial missteps to the alleged abuse of power, many Dalton residents have grown increasingly frustrated. They feel that Henyard has failed to deliver on her promises, and that her leadership has only exacerbated the town's problems. As the campaign heats up, it's clear that the tension between Henyard and her critics will only intensify, making this election one of the most contentious in the village's history. One of the most damning issues facing Henyard is the ongoing investigation into her financial activities. Allegations of improper use of public funds, including extravagant travel expenses and personal purchases made with taxpayer dollars, have led to multiple probes. The village trustees have accused her of forging checks and withholding financial records, further adding fuel to the fire. Some have even pointed to her relationship with certain members of the police force, suggesting that Henyard has used public funds to curry favor with law enforcement in an effort to secure her political power. These accusations have only deepened the distrust that many residents feel toward their mayor. At the same time, Henyard's extravagant spending habits have come under intense scrutiny. The mayor has been criticized for using taxpayer dollars to fund expensive trips to places like New York, Portland, Austin, and Atlanta. In particular, her stay at the Four Seasons in Atlanta, with a bill exceeding $9,000, and her $13,000 stay at the Marriott Marcus in Times Square in New York have raised eyebrows. First-class flights and high-end meals have also been documented as part of these trips, leading many to question why such lavish expenses are being covered by the village when the community is facing financial hardship. Henyard's defenders argue that she's been unfairly targeted by political opponents who are eager to discredit her. They believe that the mayor's actions are being distorted and blown out of proportion, and that she is simply trying to lead Dalton in the face of overwhelming challenges. However, for many in the community, the reality is far different. They see a mayor who is more concerned with maintaining her image and holding on to power than with addressing the very real issues facing the town. Compounding the situation, Henyard and her boyfriend are now facing eviction from their Dalton home. Reports suggest they have not made rent payments for several months, owing thousands of dollars in unpaid rent. The landlord, who has known Henyard for over 2 decades, has expressed concern that the mayor's financial troubles could force her to give up her home. For many residents, this is just another example of Henyard's financial mismanagement and poor decision-making. The news of her eviction has added a personal layer to the ongoing controversy, further undermining her credibility as a leader. Despite the mounting pressure, Henyard remains resolute in her bid for re-election. Her team has signaled that she is prepared to double down on her narrative of victimhood, casting herself as a champion of Dalton who is being unfairly targeted by political enemies. This strategy may resonate with some of her supporters, who continue to back her regardless of the scandals swirling around her. However, as the election draws near, it's clear that the future of Dalton's leadership is hanging in the balance. As Henyard's campaign heats up, it's likely to be as contentious as her time in office has been. Her opponents are ready to challenge her every move, from her spending habits to her handling of public resources. The community is divided, with some residents eager to give Henyard another chance, while others are demanding a change in leadership. The pressure is mounting, and the stakes are high. The coming months will be crucial in determining whether Henyard can secure another term, or if the people of Dalton will decide it's time for new leadership. For now, Dalton remains on edge, waiting to see if Henyard will succeed in her quest for re-election or if her past will catch up with her. Will voters continue to support her, or will they reject her leadership and demand accountability? The answer remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the battle for Dalton's future is far from over. As the election looms, it seems like the community's future is at a crossroads. Will Henyard's supporters carry her through to another term, or will her critics manage to turn the tide? Only time will tell.